My name is Mindy Newman, and I've struggled with postpartum depression, self-worth, lack of self-esteem, and drugs and alcohol. As a child growing up, my mother was addicted to prescription pills. My father had struggles with alcohol. So growing up in a home like that drugs and alcohol were very common. And so unfortunately, I tended to follow that pattern and become somewhat of a product of my environment. I was sexually assaulted as a child, and I was very angry. My mom died whenever I was 11, and so that pretty much turned me away from God. I didn't really understand why. So after my mom died and the abuse, I look back, and that's where like shame and worthlessness started to set in, even though it was nothing that I did or caused, but that they still came in, they still crept in. And so for years, I struggled with anger, not understanding why I had to go through that stuff. That turned me against God. And not only did I have anger, but I had depression. And I tried to go to counseling, but it wasn't my choice. It was my dad sending me. And so what I would do was shut down. And when I shut down, I internalized my feelings. And so when I internalized things, they would build up and build up and build up. And then I would explode and lash out over the smallest things. And that was pretty much my teen years through, I don't know, mid-20s. That right there landed me in jail. I burnt many bridges. I was in fights all the time. I pretty much had the motto, destroy the relationship before they could hurt me. It's not something that I'm proud of, but as I look back now, it was definitely a way that God was using that pain that I was going through. So my depression, as I struggled with depression, that came in many forms. Most of the time I would just shut down. I would turn to drugs. My main drug of choice as a teenager was alcohol or smoking weed. So that's what I did pretty much every single day. And if I wasn't doing that, I would sleep all the time. I went through periods of time where I would just stay in my bed, where I wouldn't take a bath, where I wouldn't brush my teeth. I wouldn't do anything except for lay around. Then other times I would binge eat, just watch TV. I was big at isolating myself from others. That was my main go-to, is just stay away from people. And that pretty much stayed around until, I don't know, 5 years ago. I did not want to be around people. So anytime that I could isolate, that's what I chose to do. 10 years ago, I was raped. I didn't know it at the time, but I was pregnant. It wasn't from the rape, but like I said, I didn't know it. And so for the first 2 months, I drank during my pregnancy because of that. I drank to numb the pain, to not think about it. And when I found out I was pregnant, I stopped. But of course, I was still going through these things. I had no clue how to be a mother. I was scared. The father wasn't in the picture. And so I really felt that I was going to ruin my daughter's life, is how I looked at it. I was scared that I was going to emotionally and mentally damage her. And so when she was born, I have this picture of the first picture of her and I, and most mothers you see, and they're so excited with their baby. And I was, on pain medication from a C-section, but it was just, I look back at it and I see hurt. I see so much hurt. And what I started experiencing a depression. I didn't feel like I was a nurturing mother. There were times, and this part here, I hate to say it, but I have to say it because I know that there's women out there struggling with postpartum depression. There's women that are going to struggle with it, that do not talk about it, that do not mention it. I knew about postpartum depression, but I didn't really know about it. I knew what it was. But there were periods of time where I would leave my daughter crying in her crib for hours. I wouldn't pick her up. I didn't want to hold her. I loved her, but it was something, I can't really explain it. I just could not explain it, and the thoughts that would go through my head. So what did I do? I went back to my old familiar patterns. I would start drinking. I would start smoking just to ease my mind, and I would choose that over my daughter any chance that I got. Like I said, that pains me, but that's the truth. And then I had my second daughter, and that was so much worse. I did not bond with her at all. I did not want to be around her. Her father is in the picture. We're married now. But I didn't want to hold her. I would leave her crying in her bouncer seat for hours. I was not in the point or at the point to reach out for help. I didn't even understand. I just thought I was bad. I thought I was cold-hearted, mean. I knew something was wrong, but he was there to help. So then, within a year, I had my third daughter. And things were different then. We bonded. I don't like saying she was a good baby because it's not that the other two weren't. She was just really easygoing and laid back and relaxed. So it was very easy. I was very scared when I was pregnant, but when I had her, it was very easy. But I still had young children. And as I was holding her one day, I remember having like the worst thought imaginable. Like, she had done nothing, but these thoughts were back. These thoughts that I had gone through and had in the past were coming back, and it just hit me. I've got to do something about it. I am going to hurt my children. You hear these stories about mothers doing that, and you just can't imagine. Well, people don't talk about what leads up to that. And unfortunately, it's some sort of mental illness, the postpartum depression, the hormones. And so I went to the doctor. And whenever I went to the doctor, she told me, or she diagnosed me with postpartum depression. I thought I could have been here all along. You know, I felt all this shame and guilt from not going to the doctor. But, you know, she was just telling me and encouraging me that I need to let that go, that so many women go through this and nobody speaks up about it or nobody does anything about it. They don't have people noticing the signs, you know, now it's going to get better. Things are going to get better. And that's whenever I would say I really started taking charge and understanding that it was up to me to take care of myself before I could take care of anybody in my family. Well, as I said, I got on medicine for my postpartum depression, but really I looked at that as I was still so scared of what was going to happen if I came off the medicine, because, you know, at that time I would go home and still be crying over things, and I knew it was like spilling something on the carpet and just putting a rug over it to cover the pain. Like, I knew there was something deeper. And we moved here 5 years ago this July, and my daughter asked me to come to church. And I was not a church person, did not want to go to church, but I came with her. And that day, the sermon was talking about anger and what our words do to our kids, and just what it causes, what the damage does. And until then, I doubted that God even existed. And that day I left knowing that God was very real, and He was the only thing that was going to save me. So I started going to Celebrate Recovery. And as I went to Celebrate Recovery, I started learning things. I learned about how to have a relationship with God, that is not something that I even knew was possible besides just believing in God. And so I learned these tools from Celebrate Recovery. I found friends in Celebrate Recovery. I found ladies who could relate to struggles that I was going through, ladies that would listen to me, and still do to this day, and not bat an eye as I shared, you know, things that I was going through in life. So one thing that I learned to do was to be vulnerable and open up. You know, for so long I had these walls and these barriers built up, and not only were they so high, they were so thick. You know, it took a lot to get through them. But as I kept coming, there was something called a step study. And I kept hearing, you get so much healing from a step study healing. And I had so much hurt and anger and rage inside of me. And as I started coming, to these groups each week, these questions were intense. They were pulling stuff out from my childhood, stuff about me, stuff that I did to others, things that other people did to me. And it was intense. And I was good at running away from my problems. So that's the first thing I wanted to do was quit. But I knew that there was some desire just to keep going. Like it was something besides me. Like, don't run from this. So I kept going and I pushed through that. And I can honestly say, like, one of the most freeing things was opening up, just like I'm doing now, and sharing what I'd went through and being honest with people. And I have grown relationships with people. I feel cared about for the first time in my life, not just by others, but, I know that God loves me. I know that my friends and my family loves me. I can love myself through all of this. In ways that I have to stay connected to God every single day through something. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. Let me go ahead and say that. Do I still struggle? Absolutely, I still struggle. But the way I cope is by reaching out to God, reaching out to others. I had to choose to build these relationships because when COVID hit, I was quick to isolate. Like, yes, I get to be home. All right, I'm going to stay home in my house. And my friends were calling me, Mindy, what are you doing? You're not calling. You're not texting. That's an old familiar pattern. I had to become vulnerable and let people, give me that kick that I needed. And so that's crucial, is staying connected. My advice would be, if somebody is struggling with depression or postpartum depression or any hurt that they are holding on to, anything that is keeping them hung up in life, any habit, my advice would be to seek help, especially for postpartum depression and depression. Don't let that guilt, that shame, anger, fear, whatever it may be, don't let that hold them back. Take charge of their life, take charge of their mental health, and seek help. Don't wait for somebody to come knocking, because so many times people think, did we miss the signs? Did we miss the signs? So if there's a husband or a spouse, watch your wife, watch your girlfriend, see how she's doing. But most importantly, take charge of your mental health yourself and seek help, whether it's a family doctor, an OB/GYN, anybody, a friend. Find somebody and don't give up. There's tomorrow's hope. I work at Tomorrow's Hope. If you're struggling with anything like anger management or grief, parenting, there are so many resources at Tomorrow's Hope. Come up there, come to the office, and make an appointment. That's the biggest thing, is just taking that first step. Stop. Admit that it's okay to not be okay, and take that first step to step out and seek some sort of help. And then every Thursday, we have Celebrate Recovery over at TVCC. Jesus may not be your thing yet, but, that right there is how I healed through things. Is nothing that man could do. Medicine works and medicine helps, but Jesus heals. And so every Thursday we have Celebrate Recovery, and it's just awesome. That's where I built friendships. That's where I found people to hold me accountable. It's changed my life. And my life verse is 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. We're hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. So nothing on this earth can hold us down if we choose to not allow it to.